Darkside Phil is just a pure asshole, right? Let's say that he really is a normal guy that's just been made the victim of a ton of freak accidents and coincidences that all just paint him as the most bumbling fucking case of pure evil that you've ever seen. He's just been trying his damnedest to make an honest career. By some divine joke, he's been hit with all these controversies and accusations where he, a totally innocent man, is just in no position to refute or answer any of them. He'd still be a fucking asshole. And if you told him that in the nicest words possible and you tried to be all constructive with him, he'd be a fucking asshole to you about it. So the greatest event in DSP history since I've started watching is the Side Scrollers podcast interview. Phil's strategy to clear his name was to answer honestly down any road, then just sort of wing it when they got to the final "come on dude" that came after every 40-minute line of questioning, completely unaware that this didn't come across like an innocent guy admitting how bad things look. It just came across as cognitive dissonance. Phil said that he never expected Adam and Craig to come out of the Side Scrollers interview believing him. And he even said that going in, he considered Craig to be 98% trustworthy. That means that he knows a reasonable, unbiased person watching the interview would not believe him. And Adam and Craig, ironically using a strategy that I think would have made Destiny a really good fit for this interview, checked in a couple times and had him confirm that they were being fair. But when Adam and Craig continued to not believe him after the interview, he fucking cried bloody murder all over the internet. His post-interview content features some of the most unhinged shit this guy's ever said. If he can't understand how an unbiased journalist can conduct a fair interview and come to a conclusion by the end of it, he sure as hell wouldn't understand that someone could conclude he's a fucking dick just by watching his unedited streams. It's really hard to have sympathy for such a mean-spirited, shitty person, even if you believe that he's an innocent man. When he isn't being negative, he's almost unwatchably boring, or he's crying and begging. His life clearly is a living hell, but at the end of the day, he chose to go down the path of live streaming thinking it would make him a more successful entertainer, then didn't turn back when he started resorting to shit like asking about the weather, or complaining about his cold DoorDash order. Shit like that. It feels like it carries entire streams sometimes. And that's the mark of an S-tier LOLcow. His biggest problem is that he's on Jason Blaha levels of just saying shit. He's just a compulsive liar. But even if you 100% believed him, you'd still come to the same conclusion. He's a boring scumfuck who's brought this upon himself and doesn't deserve a buffalo fucking nickel. Here, I'll just conclude with this one example. So, Phil is, or at least he claims that he used to be, an alcoholic. This has been a long time thing for him, and it must have been really fucking bad, because the first time he admitted it, I think, was as a saving throw to keep him from getting his ass beaten. So he started taking shots for $100 donations recently on stream. On one stream that I watched, his little island of misfit toys that he calls his chat, the only people that still give a shit about him, started asking him what was wrong and why an alcoholic would do such a thing, and he just brushed it off well, that was a long time ago, guys, things change. At face value, that's already inexcusably disrespectful towards addicts. There's no such thing as a former addict, or at least for practical reasons, nobody should ever call or consider themselves a former addict. And that's just basic shit that most people know before they even go into their first NA meeting. So I used to assume that because Phil kept his addiction hidden, that he was ashamed of it. And when he went into the doctor's office and he was in the waiting room, he'd flip over the little rehab pamphlet so he didn't have to look at it. But now I think the whole admitting that you're not living life on life's terms thing wouldn't make any sense to him because he has a wife and a house. I genuinely believe that that's where his thoughts on being an addict ends, and conveniently that's step one, so he'll never even try to recover. Anyway, that's just one little thing that got to me. He says shit like that so often that you're bound to get offended somehow if you watch him for long enough. But then once you found a solid reason to hate him, it sort of feels like you're studying a chimpanzee that's afflicted with narcissism. By instinct, he's putting himself above other people, making the most obvious power grabs, stomping his feet and yelling. It's impossible to look away from, and there's always a ton of discussion to be had on every single move that this guy makes, so I'm definitely putting him in S tier. Cyrax's relationship with his trolls can be summed up by his fight with Music Biz Marty. Marty rented an Airbnb near Cyrax's house, and by extension, free real estate in the little guy's head. Cyrax wouldn't have heard a word that Marty said if he had just kept his head down and worked on his art, But he decided to leave his own space and march right into Marty's. He attacked Marty without hesitation, not leaving any room for them to talk things through like adults.
Cyrax, you even said that I was the king back, and I was like, who's the king? And you're like, get the fuck out of here, who's the king? You are! You are! You are? Then run away now. Shut the fuck up. Fine. You win. You win.
After he, a 5-foot fuck-all 80-pound goblin, did battle with a 6.5-foot tall 250-pound motherfucker, the vanquished ghouls sulked home in the rain and declared victory.
I'm still here, I'm still standing, and I'm still doing good. So, Marty, fuck you.
So for a bit of context, this came after Marty proved that he was better at racing games than Cyrax, which was the last thing that Cyrax really thought that he had over him. So he challenged him to the most just primal, stupid, pointless caveman battle he possibly could. Like, after he had lost every battle of wits, this was his last resort. Like, I thought this was a last resort. But trust me when I say that this is how all of Cyrax's battles go. He just gets right back up and keeps on coming like nothing happened. He really is like a brain-rotten zombie that only knows how to attack. When the little guy aggros, he puts 100% physical and mental energy into howling and coming up with slurs, and one time he and Marty were locked in their usual battle of who's a pedophile and who's going to jail. Two totally unrelated topics, by the way. When Marty said that he knew that Cyrax's grandma's boyfriend had shot himself in that very house within the last 48 hours. Now, this turned out to be something that Marty just came up with to fuck with Cyrax in the moment, but when Cyrax was on that stream going, "No, fuck you," I totally believed it, because that's how he reacts every time someone spits the truth. He can't reason, he can't argue, he can just rage.
So I got a question for you.
Shut your mouth!
I got a question for you.
Fuck your question!
Well, then you don't want to have a conversation.
Answer my questions, bitch!
Cyrax. So
Fuck
what are you gonna do?
you! Fuck your questions!
Cyrax feels like a LOLcow made in a lab. Like, all the ingredients are there, and it all feels like it's too perfect, or like whoever made him took things a little too far. He looks as close as a human can get to a cartoon character. He lives in a bug-infested attic making what he thinks are the best rap songs ever. The trolls tricked him into destroying his own Xbox. He's just barely got the faculties to click his way into these Discord calls and scream. And at the end of the day, he's an offending pedophile, so you can't even feel sorry for him. Berserk fans will understand this. It's like Chris Chan spent his whole life learning how the internet and this whole LOLcow thing works, got thrown in the dungeon and died, then came back as this fully realized being that doesn't feel like he's supposed to exist in the real world. And he knew exactly how to speedrun becoming top LOLcow. You can even actually see some of the old DNA still in there.
The main purpose of this video is to call out a certain troll who is trying to impersonate me. His name is Cyrax.
You wanna go to war, Nick? You better be fucking ready, cause you're fucking with a modern day Viking.
When I told you I got fans, I meant it, bro. 18 karat gold chain pendant of ya boy.
I mean, bro's the next Chris Chan. Where am I supposed to put him but S tier? You know that line from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas about God's own prototype, too weird to live but too rare to die? Well, Daniel Larson kind of like takes that philosophically on the next level, like if you were to add another 10 people to the trolley car experiment. One time me and my brother were talking about LOLcows, and he said that he thinks the only ethical donation you can make towards Dang is one that ends his life or gets him removed from society somehow. And I can't be sure that I disagree with him. Like, if Cyrax is a LOLcow that was made in a lab to just be perfect, Daniel is like the one that went a little too far and he got really fucked up and he became this like moral conundrum out of a sci-fi movie. Like, when you talk about whether or not Daniel should be allowed to walk the streets, it feels like you're talking about the DC universe or some shit. And the funny thing is, just like a monster out of a DC comic or a Godzilla movie or something, he is being controlled by other people, at least in part.
You on film. I have you on film.
Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out.
Please tell me somebody's recording this.
I'm not.
Daniel, what's happening?
Police told me to wait in there, bitch. Daniel, defend yourself.
Daniel, get back at him.
Defend yourself, Daniel.
You're injured?
I'm fucking injured.
Show us. What is happening?
The guy fucking tackled me to the ground.
Did you spit on him?
I had to hit him for protection.
Daniel, you need to leave right now because you just attacked him.
No, because I'm pressing charges on them.
Okay.
I'm pressing charges.
Daniel's delusion is that he became a celebrity by writing shit like Roaring Thunder. So when Daniel became homeless and he joined a Discord where people started saying they were his managers, he bought in, no questions asked, and he's been on tour ever since. Now, let me tell you, so I've seen King Crimson, Steely Dan, Gorillaz, but if Daniel Larson came to a Planet Fitness near me, that might be the greatest show I ever go to.
You don't get to demand here.
Then you're breaking the law.
No, I'm not. Boo, get the fuck out right now!
Get up out of here.
And that's also illegal.
Come on, let's go. Come on, get out, please. You need to leave here for more than 2 minutes.
But then you started spying.
I have not been yet.
I'm just saying I was doing nothing, and then you started cussing the hell out of me.
You're welcome to the men's restaurant. Come on, let's go. This guy's hot. Come on, let's go.
I'm not.
You're hot. You high as a motherfucker.
Don't even call me that.
Come on.
Don't even fucking call me that, bitch.
I get that there are LOLcows and celebrities that have this need for drama, or they have a personality that'll make it so they always butt heads with other people. But I need, like, a psychiatrist to explain Daniel Larson's need for conflict.
Get on my car.
I said I
Get
am.
on my car now.
I said I am. Give me
Move.
1
Get
second.
on my car.
Excuse me.
What's actually kind of fucking creepy is that usually he's only, like, mentally on the level of an 8-year-old, but he jumps up to a Machiavellian 14-year-old when it's time to manipulate or gaslight someone.
I don't want any. All I want you to do is get out of my car.
But I'm afraid.
Go away.
I'm afraid that you're gonna drive somewhere and kill yourself. I'm gonna be honest.
I'm not gonna do any of those things. I've never threatened to do that. You're the one that threatens to do that all the time.
You're just not taking any accountability at all.
I get a hold of him, Jonas, right, on the phone. And I say, look, this is an issue. I'm breathing heavily, right, because the situation is escalated. I'm breathing heavily. The other client is going crazy, ballistic, right? It's pushing me to my limits. It's pushing Jonas to his limits because he thinks, oh, Daniel did this. Well, I'm gonna be serious. I did, but it's because I, like, literally, you know, I can't get a hold of him. The situation's pushing me.
This guy isn't just, like, broke with delusions of grandeur. The main carrot on a stick that people use to drag him all over the country is an underage girl. So there is evil in Daniel's heart. Like, I imagine if you're gonna sympathize with him because he just seems so helpless, try to side with him after he's walked into saying some shit like this.
But as far as Izzy Simpson and Charlotte Summers, you are aware that Izzy Simpson is 14 and Charlotte Summers is 17, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you confirm that you really did say the things in that video in response to Izzy Simpson and Charlotte Summers.
Yes.
Daniel, that is literally the definition of pedophilia.
Yes. Oh, this was fucking ridiculous.
I am sorry for having 500 megabytes of child porn.
Daniel is such a pervert that he literally feels the fires of hell every time he jacks off, and he still does it.
It starts off with a tickle, turns into burning. I gag just as I come. It feels like, basically like a gigantic needle piercing right through my penis.
Most of his camera roll, and I mean like 90% of it, is pictures of little girls. So he fits like White Bowser's definition of pedophile, the does not sleep definition. So him being this homeless, delusional, and horny makes it so he's probably the most interactive LOLcow on this list. I can't recommend fucking with him personally, but he is a constant supply of A-tier LOLcow entertainment. Earl Doobie, aka the White Bowser, comes from Smokey McCrack's Discord server, which is a community built around making fun of LOLcows. But he's managed to fall into just a vicious cycle of LOLcow behavior. I think it's kind of like racism. Like, if you don't see yourself as a racist person, you can let yourself get away with saying a bunch of racist shit. But instead of comparing himself to like the KKK, he's looking at Cyrax and thinking, well, I'm not as bad as him, I can't be a LOLcow. But he's still riding with like the 4 horsemen of LOLcow traits, right? He's got defensiveness, a lack of introspection, ego, and he has to get the last word in. And ironically, all these things have basically allowed Earl to trick himself into thinking he's too smart to walk into some LOLcow shit. Smokey McCrack himself is actually a really good troll for Bowser, because it just doesn't compute when a stoner who's not taking this seriously manages to outwit a 110 IQ fucking intellectual colossus like the Doob.
Bowser, you're the... I don't know, man. You have a weird thing for kids, bro.
I don't.
You do.
I've never had a weird.
You definitely do, bro.
I don't.
You fucking
degenerate psychopath! You are a fucking loser in the head, abuser, hypocrite, fucking disgusting degenerate!
Earl's got main character syndrome so bad that he can twist any situation that he's ever found himself in to make him look like the good guy. So he's telling stories about times where he was undeniably just a creep or a predator, then he justifies it, or he makes it sound like it was permissible given the circumstances.
Now, I only quote-unquote groped her for 5 seconds, max. I was really quite in shock when the whole thing went down. I had never touched a boob before. I had groped a woman and not even had any recollection nor memory of it happening because it happened so fast. Because I was in shock of touching a boob. She was kind of a flat chest. She was like no bigger than a B cup. It was actually her twin sister Heather who got the good genes.
He'll lie about events or his own intentions just to basically make the story go however his anime plot idea of his life is supposed to go. And he can apply this to other people too. Like, here's an example of when the police showed up to his work post-bomb threat, and they asked his manager, like, hey, is this guy nuts? His manager was like, fuck yeah! But look at how he twists his manager's exact language to fit his narrative.
The supervisor of Imagine Macomb, who was my friend, lied to the police about the letter I wrote. She said the letter was a letter of harassment, a letter of bullying. She didn't want to disclose to the sheriff what exactly that letter said, because if she did, I probably would have been taken away in handcuffs for groping an 18-year-old. The supervisor of Imagine Macomb lied about what that letter said. She did. She lied to the police about what that letter said, just to save me from getting arrested.
And naturally, people go after him for it. Earl's ego is not impregnable. It actually seems like it's pretty fragile. He's just sort of studied in the Genjutsu school of Bullshido. Anything that can't be deflected or avoided gets reframed. He's got no problem telling the whole world that him and his buddies back in college used to sit out on the couch in the living room watching hentai of underage girls on the big screen TV. But then trying to get him to admit that he's attracted to underage girls is like challenging him to 4D chess. Bowser has tried to pull out this weird definition of pedophile that he says is from the DSM-5 that literally includes does not sleep. He's tried to slip this past people. If I can recommend a place to start with Earl content, I would say his arguments with Cow Wrangler are best. Cow Wrangler holds themselves with a sense of dignity that demands Bowser's respect and attention, unlike Smokey, who he can just dismiss. So once Cow Wrangler starts talking, Earl starts crying faster than you can say Tawawa.
Is that true, Bowser? Is Tawawa 15?
Oh, I actually sent you the link to the wiki, Kiwi, so I figured that would help you out a little bit.
Okay.
I sent it to everyone in here, I believe, because I wanted to make sure that everyone was well aware of who they were talking to. And that girl, besides from her obnoxious breast, looks like a child. She looks like a 15-year-old. Her friends look like children. So the fact that you sexualize her and you make comments about dreaming about turning into her is so interesting.
Are you fucking done? Please fucking
I mean, she's just
Oh,
saying...
the Bowser. Well, no, I think
He's kind of an acquired taste, but I put the White Bowser on B tier, just because he sort of stands as like this meta monument of what not to do on the internet. There's so much going on with just those 4 LOLcows in the last couple weeks that I need to split this up into multiple parts. Otherwise, by the time the whole video was done, I'd be obligated to go back and change some shit, and I just don't want to do that. While it's more accurate to say Cyrax, Daniel Larson, and White Bowser are like 3rd generation LOLcows, in One Piece terms, they're the worst generation. Then DSP is probably the LOLcow that I followed the most ever since I would read the Quickie every day in high school. So I thought it would be a fun challenge to condense all of that down into the most concise teardown that I could come up with. Oh yeah, and speaking of concise, this is the end of the video.